Did you know that women are more than 80% likely to live in poverty than men in retirement? The financial challenges women face are unique, and that's why planning for them is not an option, it's a necessity. Our first reality is this: nearly 43% of women take time off from work to care for children or for their aging parents. And here's what that means for you. You are depriving yourselves of income. That's number one. Two, on average, women have 30% less saved for retirement by the time that they're ready to do so. And three, of course, because you are not working, that is going to lower your Social Security benefit, which is a statistics that many women have a lower Social Security benefit because they have worked less than men in their lifetime. Number two is income. The gender gap is very real, even though we are in the very modern times. The statistics currently has is that women earn about 83 cents versus what men are earning. The third reality is where Social Security strategic planning is important for us ladies. And here's why. Because you are working less time, the expectation is that your Social Security benefit is going to be less. So it is very important to have a strategic planning for your Social Security benefits. Does it make sense to wait and get less? Especially if you're married, it makes sense to sit down and figure out if one spouse is going to start receiving their benefits earlier. Does it make sense for you to postpone so that way you get a greater benefit on a monthly basis? Another important fact to understand here is that many women in retirement, especially when they are left by themselves to take care of themselves, rely on Social Security as one of their primary sources of income. The fourth reality is very, very serious, and I talked about it in one of my previous videos, and that has to do with overall longevity. And it's even more important for women to realize that typically, statistically speaking, women are going to live longer than men, on average 5 to 10 years, if not longer. And also today, with the technological and medical advances, most of the time the expectation is that we are going to be living well into our 90s. And you know what that means, especially for us ladies? If you're starting out with a smaller income and less time worked, we are even more in deficit to help us plan for a longer retirement. And we're talking about 20 to 30 years. Also, many women think that their spouses they're going to outlive them. And as you can imagine from the statistics that we know for a fact, that is very much not the case. The ladies are going to outlive their husbands majority of the time. And of course, with longevity comes another reality dose of expanded costs for healthcare. Often as much as $200,000 that we as ladies have to plan for longer lifespan, as well as potentials for chronic illnesses. Another reality is also prevalent when one becomes a surviving spouse. There is a need for stronger moral support, like friends and family. It is very important to help get us through those tough times and continue to live a good and fulfilling retirement. The next reality is we as ladies have to plan for inflation, for rising cost of goods, as well as for taxes. A lot of these things people don't think about until we are actually faced with it, we're looking at it. And you know what, when you're on a fixed income, those things are very much apparent and they make you very uncomfortable. And this is where it's important to have control and understand what your expenses are, and of course having a budget, which is the foundation of planning for retirement and having also a successful retirement as it is. So as I mentioned to you, all of these reality checks, I think by now you realize that this is something that is a very serious consideration for us ladies to kind of consider and take care of. And now this brings me as to how. What can we do? What strategies can we take and implement? And as I talk with my clients on a regular basis about their planning for retirement and what does that mean in pertaining to the real estate, I always tell them, and I'm going to tell you the same thing, there's always a way, there's always a plan, there are always options. Don't ever feel like you are trapped and you're in the corner and there's nothing that you can do. So here's my suggestion. If you want, pause this video now, grab a notebook and let's jot down some thoughts and ideas that can be helpful to you, because each of you is going to have a different unique situation that you need to analyze and figure out which of the tips that I'm going to offer next are going to make sense to you. So when we are talking about planning for retirement, a lot of the times your spouse may retain a certified financial planner or financial advisor to help with planning. And as you can imagine, that industry is about 77% male dominated. And I see it all the time on a regular basis in speaking to my clients and asking them, who is that financial advisor that is part of your team? And what happens is when we ladies are on our own now, whether, if the husband has passed away and we now have to take matters in our own hands, 7 out of 10 times, the ladies are going to fire that financial advisor that was there when the spouse was managing the affairs. And why is that? The biggest part of it is stereotyping. If you think about it, the baby boomer generation, what has been the tradition? The tradition is that your husband, your spouse takes care of the finances, they help maintain the household, they bring in the income, where the women a lot of times were staying at home and caring for their children. And now it can be both, as we already mentioned. We talked about caring for the children as well as caring for aging parents. And a lot of the times, the advisor was mainly talking to your husband to provide advice and details. And probably in a good percentage of 95% of the time, you as a spouse were not taken seriously, were not listened to, were not heard and understood to see what your concerns are. What are your plans? What are you trying to accomplish in retirement? As most of the time, those things were looked at and pointed out to the spouse. And when I was doing the research for this video, one of the things that I thought about, that I ran into, and I am not a baby boomer generation, I am a Generation X, I'm actually a cusper, was when I was purchasing my car, I brought my husband with me because we brought in our car that I had to go ahead and trade in. And then as we were shopping, just about every dealership that we went to, everybody was talking to my husband and nobody was looking at me. And my husband said, I don't know why are you looking at me when it's my wife, Olga, who is sitting right next to me, who is actually shopping. You need to talk to her. I've noticed that many times, and it was actually me purchasing the car that I was going to use. So that stereotyping that the husband is making majority of decisions, unfortunately, it does still exist, and we need to be just very mindful about it. So what happens when you are now in control of the finances because your husband passes away? Majority of the times, you ladies are going to fire that advisor because you don't have that connection and you don't feel like that advisor is going to be partnering with you and hearing you what you have to say and helping you with your plans. Another thing I think that is important to understand with baby boomers is the way women and men look at money and what is important. So here's an example. For males, for men, quite often, what's important is how stocks are performing, how they can accumulate that cash in the pile of money. And this is not necessarily what's important to you ladies. Women are often concerned about 3 things: reducing the risk, making sure that the money that is already accumulated is secure and is going to last us for the time that we're looking for. And also having confidence in the future and having someone, that advisor, to help them along the way to protect what they already saved up and worked so hard for. So here's what I suggest that you do. And you do it today. There's no better time to start than today. You have to get educated. You need to do some research. You need to figure things out. You need to get comfortable in talking about and dealing with finances because, ladies, your future depends on it. Fidelity found this survey that was actually done 1.5 years ago, and here's what it says. Only 1 out of 5 women felt confident in choosing investments that align with their goals. Well, ladies, it's time to get comfortable so that way 100% of you, 5 out of 5, is going to be comfortable to help you and plan for your future that can be anywhere between 20 and 30 years. So one thing that I want to recommend to you is not necessarily going to that certified financial planner, which is the typical route that many men have taken. You want to partner up with somebody that has the designation and the training to help you specifically plan for retirement, to help you preserve what was accumulated and help you and guide you and make sure that that money lasts. And I have 3 suggestions for you. The first one is the designation is called RMA, and that stands for Retirement Management Advisor. So these certified advisors are guiding you on your retirement journey by working with you to understand your mindset as you shift from accumulating and investing assets to funding your retirement income. RMA has been specifically trained in client communication, trust, and planning outcomes to ensure a client-centered focus throughout all the steps of the retirement planning process. I think this definition of this advisor sounds exactly what we're looking for to help us and guiding us in this process. The second one is called RICP, and that stands for Retirement Income Certified Professional. These professionals are specifically trained to help you maximize all of your available income streams and also address needs like estate planning, taxes, and healthcare. And that's, of course, are the big pillars when you're planning for retirement and you want to make sure that the funds last you for 20 to 30 years. And the last one designation is called CRPC, and that stands for Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor. Counselors that focus on the same key educations as the retirement income certified professional, but they have less stringent experience and continuing education requirements. Now, my suggestion to you is focus on finding some really good retirement income certified professionals, which is the second one in my list of suggestions. So here are some good questions to ask these professionals. And I want you to think about it just like when you are interviewing contractors for some of the renovations that you may want to do in your home. This is even more important. You want to talk to interview at least 2 to 3 individuals. And if you want, talk to females, talk to males, and see who feels right, who makes sense to you, and trust your gut, trust that intuition. So here's some of the questions that I suggest that you pose to these professionals. How can I minimize my income taxes when I begin to draw on my retirement savings? Do I need to wait until age of 70 to take Social Security? How will I pay for medical expenses that Medicare won't cover? Can I earn more in retirement without returning to work? Will I lose buying power in retirement if inflation rises? And should I use an annuity to protect my income? As you can see, these are really, really important and serious questions, and great questions to ask these professionals. What I'm also going to do is post a few resources on where you can find these professionals, how to search, and what you want to make sure is that when you're on the website, just take your time and make sure that when you're doing the search, you are actually checking off the designations that make sense specifically for what we are talking about here in this video. The next important topic that I want to discuss with you is another part of what you should do next. Besides getting financial education before taking control in matters into your own hands, my suggestion to you is having a clear and serious discussion with your spouse now, today, right now. Sit down and say, what if something was to happen to you? I have no idea where our accounts are. I have no idea what our passwords are. How can we make this easier to help me in this transition, which I may have to take? And here's a couple of examples that I can give you from my real estate practice and from talking to my clients. I have a client who told me that a friend of hers always thought that she was going to be the first one to pass away. And that's why she always said, oh, well, my husband is taking care of those things. Oh, my husband is going to do the transfer and my husband is paying the bills. And you know what happened? Overnight, her situation changed because he suddenly passed away and she was left completely unaware, completely unprepared. She had no idea how to log in, where her checkbook was to write checks. She had nothing to go on and no preparation. And that's why sitting down with your spouse now and participating in the planning and in monthly paying of the bills and knowing where the accounts are and having a general spreadsheet is what is so important, and getting your spouse on board to make sure that they're participating and having you involved is also very important. So your food for thought for today is this. I gave you lots of things to think about. A lot of them are very uncomfortable, and I just want you to remember that these are general ideas and suggestions for you, yet each of you is going to have different situation and different goals and different plans. So what are you going to do today? How are you going to start if you haven't? Because I gave you some important things to consider. So let's take it one day at a time, and let's actually take action today. So post your questions in your comments and your thoughts, and let's work together to help you plan for a successful and fulfilling retirement.